Now, Lagos is one of Nigeria's coastal states, and therefore the development and protection of its waterfronts and coastlines is key. Joining us now from Lagos to discuss the role of waterfront infrastructure development and the role that it plays in the Lagos state economy is Prince Adesegun Oniru. He's the Commissioner for the Waterfront Infrastructure Development. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Now, of course, Lagos state is made up of several islands and home to a number of waterways. Talk to us through how the waterfront infrastructure project is going to play a role in the overall development and planning of the state as a whole, particularly as it relates to integrating the economy.
Well, as you've said, yes, Lagos State is surrounded by water, and a lot of the work this ministry is doing is to develop a world-class waterfront whereby both private and foreign investors will come in and develop forests, and in order to have a sustainable waterfront infrastructure.
Now, what has been the uptake from the private sector? We often talk about the difficulty of getting interest from the private sector because many of these infrastructure projects, there's a big capital layout, it's quite expensive, government has to put in the groundwork and of course the initial cash. What has been the response from some of the private sector players to the initiative?
Sorry, you might have to repeat that question. I didn't get you properly.
Yes, let's hope I'm clear. I'm talking about the appetite from the private sector for some of these initiatives. We know that it's quite cash intensive. There's a lot of capital layout. The state often has to push in quite a bit of money. Take us through how you've been able to incentivize or excite the private sector, who's often quite hesitant to put in this kind of money.
Well, normally what the state government do is to take different area across the state and would develop it as per putting an infrastructure there for investors to come in. But in some cases, it doesn't always work like that because sometimes you find it's very, very cash intensive. So what we do is to invite different developers from all around the globe to come and have an input in developing the waterfront of the state. And a prime example of what I'm talking about is what's going on now in Lagos State, the project called Atlantic City. Mm-hmm. Atlantic City is private development. It's purely driven by private funds, and all the government is working on with them is the supervision of the project and for us to make sure that they adhere to the agreement signed between the two parties. Mm-hmm. So it's not always government spending the money to put infrastructure in place. Sometimes, if we have a developer, be it private, be it foreign, they come to an agreement, a PPP agreement with the state government for development of this certain area.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, this has the potential to be a money spinner, especially in sectors such as tourism, for example. Talk to us about how this initiative can be harnessed to increase, tourists coming to Lagos State and generating, additional benefits and value of putting money into infrastructure.
Well, you see, if we look around the world, look at Dubai, look at Miami, all around the globe, New York, Paris, London. I'm still yet to see a city that will give you a better return on your investment than what we're doing here in Lagos today. Because if you were to bring in your fund, you get a lot higher return because real estate is something that's really big here in Nigeria, particularly in Lagos. And if your funds is planted in the right area and the right infrastructure development area, there's always takers to whatever it is that you're putting across there. So if you have a piece of land that you're going to pump about $10, $20 billion into it, within 10 to 15 years, you get times 2 or times 3 of that of your money back, even having inflation in mind. So is an haven. It's an haven for investors to come into, and it's an haven to develop tourist attraction. Once you put this infrastructure in place, there's always different developers and investors that will come in and take on board whatever it is that you have to offer.
Prince, final question. Of course, there are things such as weather conditions and so on that's not within the control of us as human beings. There's, of course, the risk factor that development close to waterfronts does expose, those businesses and investments to the elements. Take us through the extent to which you ensuring that whatever development is happening is consistent with being able to withstand, or at the very least ameliorate very difficult weather conditions or any kind of, calamities. We've seen in the States of Katrina, for example, the devastation wreaked on businesses very close, in proximity. Take us through how you plan to mitigate some of those risks.
Well, you see, fortunate for us in this part of the world, your Katrina, Sandy, all different cyclones that you get in the Western world, around America, Caribbean, we don't have that here. But what we do have here is sometimes the adverse effect of it. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes when you have a really, really bad cyclone, and when it hits the Caribbean or some part of South of America, yes, you get some ripple effect here. And how does that happen here? You get high waves, ocean surge. But luckily for us in Lagos State, what we have done, particularly in the area of Eco Atlantic City project I was talking about, we have a wall that protects the city. And beyond that, that area called Eco Atlantic City, we're also putting in place now groins. This is some sort of a protection that protects people that live along that coastline against erosion and ocean surge. So the state is prepared for it. A lot of the issues that we have here are issues based on nature and global warming and climate change. And I don't think there's any city in Africa.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any city in Africa more prepared for those adverse effects of weather than us in Lagos State. So we're okay here, and we seem to be doing very well.